What is going on, YouTube? This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles, and I welcome you to another one of my videos. This is going to be a video about the top 10 comic books that I was able to pick up in the year 2021. Now, 2021 was a difficult year for many because of the coronavirus and a bunch of other things, but the comic book market has been on fire this year. So much so that we have some brand new world records that were displayed for many of the major big keys, and of course some of the smaller keys had really some incremental huge steps forward in pricing. So we're going to go over my top 10 books that I was able to pick up this year, some amazing keys that I'm so fortunate to have. And like I said, because of that boom in the comic market, I was able to pick up a lot of these books before we had that big jump in price. So to me, it was such an amazing year to collect these books. Such a fun year to be a comic book collector, guys. If you are a fellow collector out there, you know what I'm talking about. If you're someone who just likes the comic industry, the movies, the MCU, stuff like that, I hope you enjoy this ride with me for the past year. So we're going to jump right into it here at number 10, guys. The 10th book that I thought was an amazing pickup that I got was a book that I got from one of my LCSs, Zap Comics. They had a copy of Edge of Spider-Verse number 2, the first appearance of Spider-Gwen. This is a book that was on my list this year to pick up, that I was finally able to, get a nice raw copy of. I'm not too sure what I remember the book being graded at, but it's definitely a high-grade copy of this book. Probably anywhere from a 9.4 to a 9.6, but she appears at number 10 on my list, only from the fact that eventually we're going to see her in a live action movie, probably through Sony, not through the MCU, but regardless, she is going to come, especially after Spider-Man No Way Home, with the introduction of the other Spider-Man. You know that there are other Spider, men or women out there in other universes, and that's what I think we're going to see in the future, so I was happy to pick that one up this year. Definitely an important book to have. At number 9 is a book that I picked up recently. If you haven't checked out one of my last unboxing videos, I was able to pick up a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 2, the first appearance of the Vulture. Now, any Silver Age Amazing Spider-Man book, guys, is highly sought after. To get a nice, raw, complete copy of this book, I was super duper happy. Anyone knows who's been watching my videos that I've been trying to collect raw books right now because I think they're a little bit fairer price, where a lot of CGC graded books or other slab books have really gone up in value to the point where they were very, very expensive. So if you are a good grader and you're willing to spot, defects and good things about a book, you can always get a better deal on raw books. But I was happy to add this to the collection recently. I do own this book in a graded copy, of course, but I want to collect these books raw as well, just to have the second copy in case they decided to sell some of them later on in life. But again, another book I was happy to add to the collection. At number 8 this year is a copy of another book that I picked up this last month, Ultimate Fallout number 4, the first appearance of Miles Morales. Now, I also got this book from my LCS Zap Comics. They were at a local show I went to, and they had this book fairly priced. And again, another book that I was looking to add to the collection this year, a book that I have owned in the past. And again, I was happy to pick up this book as well in a higher grade. They have this book graded at a 9.6 raw, and they are really good graders at my LCS. They're usually pretty spot on. So eventually I will have this pressed and sent off for grading. This is one of the few books, this and the Edge of Spider-Verse, I will be sending to CGC to kind of get graded, just to have protection. These modern books, these big modern book keys, and I don't do a lot of modern collecting, I will have these slabbed at one point. But again, another book that is, the potential of it is through the roof. Eventually, Miles will show up in a live action MCU or Sony film, and when that happens, all bets are off, guys. That book is going to go to the moon. So another book I really wanted to add this year, and I was happy to pick it up in 2021. The next book I actually picked up in the middle of the year, kind of in the hype, when everything was kind of going crazy with the market, really major spikes. And I'm happy I added this book, but I think right now it's probably come down a little bit in price. So I'm probably a little bit underwater in this one, but either way, I'm happy I picked it up. It is a copy of X-Men number 4, the first appearance of the Scarlet Witch, a book I really wasn't looking for at the beginning of this year, really wasn't on my want list, but with all things that were going on with Wanda and the multiverse, now is the time to pick up that book. I really am happy with this purchase, regardless if it's gone down or not. A nice Silver Age X-Men key, and now, of course, Wanda will play a major role in the MCU going forward, at least with Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. I do believe that her character will take on a larger role going forward in the MCU. This is probably, like a 1.5 graded book, not to a high grade, lower grade copy. But again, another book I was happy to add to the collection when I did, even though, like I said, I'm a little bit underwater right now on it. It's okay. It's a Silver Age X-Men book, and we know the X-Men are coming anyway. So a book I was happy to add and glad that I was actually at it when I did. The next book I never am shy about owning. I probably own about 5 copies of this book at some point in my life. I have actually a CGC graded 8.0 copy of this book, but I was able to pick up within a month of each other, probably around the fall time, were a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 129, a nice raw copy of this book. Definitely worth grading, probably around a 6.0 or so, 6.5, maybe a little better depending on, with a good press or not. But believe it or not, I was actually able to add 2 copies of this book. Now you can see the second copy has a little bit of a tear right here in the bottom corner, which I was okay with, not a big deal. The rest of the book is actually looks really nice, but 2 books I was able to add that were definitely on my want list. Like I said, I have owned copies in the past, and this book, of course, is a book that I think is one of the top spec books going into next year. One of my favorite characters, Frank Castle, the Punisher. Again, a beautiful yellow cover, John Romita cover as well, also with Gil Kane, of course. So to me, this is a must-have for any collector out there right now, guys. If you are not a Punisher fan, that's 100% fine, but this book is going to spike even higher when we get confirmation that the Punisher is going to appear in either a Disney Plus show or his own MCU movie or someone else's movie, guys. This is a number 1 of my top picks for 2022. But that's for another video. But again, another book I was happy to add multiple copies to my collection. I'm down to 3 copies now on this, and anyone knows who watches my videos religiously that I am a big Punisher fan, one of my favorite characters growing up. A book that I said is a must-have, guys, and I was very happy to add 2 copies this year because it's one of my top spec books. Next on the list is A Crazy Story. I believe we're at number 4 or 5 at this point. I don't even remember the number, but from both of my LCSs, I was able to pick up this book, 1 from each. 1 I had graded, 1 I kept raw. So again, another book that I have 2 copies of. It is Fantastic Four, number 48, the first appearance of the Silver Surfer. Now, as you can see, this one is a nice lower grade copy, probably around a 2.025. Again, another book I was really happy to add back into the collection. I did have a 4.0 on point, or a 4.5 that I'd sold earlier, in the year, that I was kind of disappointed I sold it afterwards because it really took a monumental jump higher in price. But my LCS actually got this in a collection. I was able to pick it up for them for a fair price, and it has since gone up in value. So like I said, I have 2 copies of this book. They both came out raw, but I actually ended up sending one to CGC, and it came back at a 2.5 with I got it with the nice Silver Surfer label on it. I do think they undergraded this book. This book is actually a really decent copy. I thought I'd get a 3.0 or 3.5. It came back at 2.5. There were no graders notes to tell me why it came back at 2.5. Nothing that was too dramatic. So either way, I'm happy with the book. I'm glad I own this because when Silver Surfer does show up in the MCU at some point, this book is going to take another leap higher. Again, another big-time spec book. If you guys still do not own this book, you are missing out. The good thing about this book and a few other books is that prices are starting to come down right now. So if you do not own these books, you will be able to pounce on them for cheaper prices right now as we go forward in 2022. So keep an eye out for any of these books that you might want to add to the collections, because I do believe some of the prices will continue to drop. But again, like I said, that's a topic for another video. The next one on my list is a book that I picked up raw from, again, Zap Comics in Wayne, New Jersey. They had a copy of this book that they had graded about a 6.0. The only defect it had was a little rip on the back part of the book, on the back cover, but other than that, it looked pretty great. The one thing that stood out for me on this book was that the colors of this book just pop out, and that is, of course, a copy of Giant Size X-Men number 1, the first appearance of the new X-Men team. As you could see, this came back as 7.0 white pages. I was super stoked to add this book to the collection. It's a book I'd been wanting for a really long time. I actually owned this copy, 7.5, about 20 years ago when I first got back into collecting comics, and of course I later sold it. But this book has gone up dramatically in price, and I do think it will still continue to go up as we go into 2022 and beyond, because like I said, the X-Men, Wolverine, all these characters will eventually show up in the MCU at some point. So if you do not own a copy of this book, I highly suggest it. Again, I actually prefer this one over X-Men 94 and even possibly over X-Men #1, even though that is a Silver Age book, only for the fact these are the characters that most people gravitate to when we talk about X-Men. But again, an important key I was able to pick up in the early part of 2021, guys, and it appears at #4 on my list. So I got the numbers straightened out now. At #3 is a book, believe it or not, that I picked up earlier in the year as well, when I first started to see that this book was starting to spike in price. It has really gone up almost too much, in my opinion, over the year, only because there are so many copies of this book out there. It is a Bronze Age key, a major key, and of course it is Incredible Hulk number 181, signed by the great Roy Thomas. Again, a book that I own 2 copies of now. It is a nice, like I said, yellow CGC witness signature by Roy Thomas, and a book that has really almost tripled and quadrupled in price over the past year. It is really gone bananas. Now, like I said before, there are a lot of copies of this book out there, right? A lot of graded copies as well. Of course, when we're shopping these books, we want to make sure that this book has the Marvel stamp intact. That is the major thing. So if it does, and you feel comfortable paying that price, this book is a book I'd always buy. But I do believe it will come down in price this year, only for the fact because it went up so much during this year. And again, like I said, there's a lot of copies out there. So if you do not own a copy of the first appearance of Wolverine, I think there's always a good time to buy, and you may be getting a deal this year. So keep your eyes peeled. But again, a book I was super happy to own, to pick up this year. I was very fortunate to pick up this book after, before it had a major jump higher, guys. So at #2 is a book that I recently picked up, and I couldn't stay away when I saw this one posted on Instagram. It is a book that I wanted a second copy of because I believe this character, now that he has been confirmed to be showing up, this book is a really undervalued Silver Age key. One of the blue chip keys that really has gone up a lot, but really only started to go. Like we have AF-15s and Hulk ones that they've gone almost up 150%, where this book hasn't had that monumental leap higher. It has had a jump, but not as big as those books. So anyone who checked out my last unboxing video, it is a copy of Daredevil #1. Now, what makes this special is, of course, this is signed by Charlie Cox, the actor that was from the Netflix series and now is confirmed to appear in his own Daredevil show or movie at some point, as he appeared in Spider-Man No Way Home. So I was super happy to pick this book up. I had a lot of people come at me saying, why would you buy a book that was signed by an actor in case, the movie bombs or his appearance doesn't go as planned? What I will say to you guys is this: he's already appeared in a Netflix show, which the show was really awesome, and now he's appeared in Spider-Man No Way Home. Marvel is committed, and the MCU is committed to Charlie Cox as Daredevil at this point, and I don't believe they're going to do him injustice. I do think they will do a great job with that character. And going forward, I think this is a really hot book to own. If you do not own any Daredevil keys, and there really aren't that many Daredevil keys out there outside of this one, #7, and of course a couple of first appearance of the villains like Bullseye, stuff like that. This is a book I definitely wanted to own. I think I got it at a great price as well. It appears at #2 on my list, guys. Again, a book that I was super happy to pick up a second copy of, and I'm still trying to actually sell some books off so I can get back where I was before I picked this one up. So again, you guys can see that 2021 was really a great year for comic book collecting, especially for me. I picked up a lot of major keys that I was able to add to the collection. Some after the big boom, some beforehand, but either way, it was such an amazing comic book year for anything comic book related. Now, my last pickup, I was actually able to pick this up in January of 2021, so literally almost a year ago. If anybody hasn't checked out, I did a video about this book, how I was able to pick it up. I actually, talking to somebody on eBay who had this book posted, we ended up getting into a conversation and got his phone number. We ended up speaking on the phone about this book, on the possibility of me coming up to where he was located to pick up this book for a certain price, pay cash, blah, 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 blah. Long story short, we agreed on a price. I felt comfortable driving 3.5 hours to 4 hours down to Rhode Island to pick this book up. And lo and behold, I was able to pick up this year a copy of Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man, CGC witness signature by the great Stan Lee. It was really important for me to get an Amazing Fantasy 15 signed by Stan Lee. I've owned AF-15s before that were not signed, raw, graded, you name it. But if I had to choose one book that I'd want graded by Stanley, it'd be this one. Many of you guys know that, most of us have an affiliation to Spider-Man. He's one of the greatest, if not the greatest superhero of all time. And of all the characters that Stan and, Steve and Jack Kirby created, this one, is the biggest one. So to me, in my opinion, this is the top spec book there ever will be. And it was important for me to get this book. And I'm glad I got it at the right time. Right before the comic boom, I paid a really good price for this book back then. It's almost tripled in price since then. So to me, I can't be happier with this book. I can't be happier with the books that I picked up in 2021. Like I said, some before, some after the boom. But with that said, guys, 2021 was an amazing year for all things comics. Comic, statues, comic books, comic movies. And we ended the year with Spider-Man No Way Home, and an amazing film that, kind of rounded out everything that went on for the past, couple of years, with Marvel anyway. So I do think 2022 will have some bumps in the roads regarding comics. Some prices will come down. Some will continue to go up depending on the books, guys. So you always have to be careful on what we're picking up. But these are my top 10 that I picked up in 2021. I thought it was an amazing year, and I'm looking forward to 2022, guys. I'm looking forward to growing this channel, growing my collection, and of course, most importantly, guys, communicating with everyone out there in the community. So if you guys haven't subscribed to my channel, I ask that you please click that subscribe button for me, guys. Smash that like button. Of course, comment down below. Let me know what you think of what I picked up for 2021. And most importantly, what do you guys plan for 2022? Any New Year's resolutions you guys want to tell me about? Regardless, this is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.